What if I told you that a single city, built on nothing but sand and ambition, once held the collected knowledge of the entire human race, that for centuries, if you wanted to know anything about medicine, astronomy, mathematics, or philosophy, there was only one place on Earth you had to go, and that when it was destroyed, humanity didn't just lose books. It lost centuries of scientific progress we only managed to recover more than 1,000 years later. This is the story of Alexandria, the city that was supposed to last forever, and almost did. At its peak, Alexandria was home to over 500,000 people, making it the largest city on Earth. It had a lighthouse so tall that sailors could see it from 50 kilometers away. A library that collected every scroll ever written. Scientists who calculated the circumference of the Earth with stunning accuracy, without satellites, without computers, without leaving the city. But here's what most people don't know. Alexandria didn't fall in a single dramatic moment. It didn't burn down overnight. The truth of what really destroyed this city and who is actually responsible is far more complicated, far more disturbing, and far more relevant to the world we live in today than any history textbook will tell you. Stay until the end, because the answer will change how you think about knowledge, power, and who gets to decide what humanity is allowed to remember. In 331 BC, Alexander the Great rode into Egypt not as a conqueror, but as a liberator. The Egyptians had been living under brutal Persian rule for decades. When Alexander arrived, they didn't fight him. They welcomed him as a god, literally. The priests at the Temple of Amun declared him the son of their supreme deity. Drunk on that divine recognition, Alexander made a decision that would echo for millennia. He chose a thin strip of land on Egypt's northern coast, largely uninhabited, surrounded by water on two sides, and declared, Here is where I'll build my greatest city." He sketched the layout himself, reportedly using grain to mark the streets because he ran out of chalk. According to ancient sources, a massive flock of birds descended and ate the grain. His advisors saw this as a terrible omen. Alexander saw it as a sign that the city would one day feed the world. He was right. He just never got to see it. Alexander left Egypt almost immediately after founding the city, continuing his relentless campaign of conquest across Persia, India, and beyond. He would never return to Alexandria alive. He died in Babylon in 323 BC at just 32 years old, before his city had even finished construction. His body, however, preserved in honey, according to some ancient accounts, was brought back to Alexandria. And that choice to enter the greatest conqueror of the ancient world in this brand new city sent a message to every ruler on Earth. Alexandria was already the most important place on the planet, but the man who would truly build it into a legend wasn't Alexander at all. His name was Ptolemy, and what he was about to do was arguably the most audacious intellectual project in human history. After Alexander's death, his generals divided the empire among themselves. Ptolemy, one of his closest companions, took Egypt. And where other generals spent their energy on wars and conquest, Ptolemy had a different obsession: information. He founded the Mausion, the Temple of the Muses, an institution unlike anything that had ever existed. Think of it as a cross between a university, a think tank, and a research laboratory, fully funded by the state. Scholars received free meals, free housing, free servants, and a tax exemption. Their only job was to think, study, and write. And at the center of the Mausion sat the Library of Alexandria. The Ptolemies had a policy for acquiring scrolls that bordered on fanatical. Every ship that docked in Alexandria's harbor was searched. If you had books on board, they were confiscated, copied, and the copy was given back to you. The originals stayed. They reportedly sent requests to every major ruler in the known world, borrowing famous texts like the official Athenian copies of the plays of Sophocles, Euripides, and Aeschylus, and then keeping them, paying massive fines rather than return them. At its height, estimates suggest the library held somewhere between 400,000 and 700,000 scrolls. To put that in perspective, in the entire medieval period, most European monasteries considered themselves wealthy if they had a few hundred books. This wasn't just book collecting. This was a deliberate, state-funded attempt to centralize all human knowledge in a single location, so that Alexandria would become the intellectual capital of the world, and the Ptolemies would control it all. Now here's the part that always gets glossed over in the history books. The scholars these resources attracted didn't just read books. They produced discoveries so advanced that the world wouldn't catch up for over 1,000 years. Consider what was happening inside those walls. Eratosthenes, the head librarian, calculated the circumference of the Earth in roughly 240 BC. He did it using 2 sticks, the angle of shadows at noon on the summer solstice, and the known distance between 2 Egyptian cities. His answer was within 2% of the value we measure today with satellites. The man got it essentially right, 1,700 years before most Europeans believed the Earth was round enough to even matter. Aristarchus of Samos, working in Alexandria, proposed that the Earth revolves around the Sun, not the other way around. He did this in the 3rd century BC. The heliocentric model, the thing we credit Copernicus with discovering in 1543. Aristarchus got there first, by nearly 1,800 years. His writings were largely ignored, then largely lost. Hero of Alexandria, sometimes called Heron, designed a primitive steam engine, not a metaphor for one, an actual device using steam pressure to generate rotational force. He called it the Aeolipile. If that technology had been developed further, historians have argued seriously that the Industrial Revolution could have happened in the 1st century AD rather than the 18th century. Herophilus and Erasistratus performed the first systematic dissections of human cadavers, mapping the nervous system, distinguishing veins from arteries, and coming dangerously close to understanding blood circulation, something Europe wouldn't figure out until William Harvey in 1628. These weren't myths. These weren't legends. These were real people doing real science in a real city, and then the knowledge largely disappeared. The question of how and why that happened is the great unresolved wound of intellectual history, which brings us to the part everyone thinks they know, and almost always gets wrong. Ask anyone on the street who destroyed the Library of Alexandria, and you'll get one of 3 answers: Julius Caesar, the Christians, or the Arabs. The truth is more uncomfortable than any of those simple answers, because all 3 are partially right, and none of them is fully responsible. Let's start with Caesar. In 48 BC, Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria during a civil war between Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy the Unthemed. Trapped in the harbor, he ordered ships to be set on fire to prevent them from being captured. The fire spread to the docks. Ancient sources say it burned a warehouse containing around 40,000 scrolls, likely books awaiting export, not the main library itself. Caesar damaged Alexandria. He did not destroy the library. It continued to function for centuries after his visit. Cleopatra herself, brilliant, multilingual, the last of the Ptolemaic rulers, received 200,000 scrolls from Mark Antony as a gift, reportedly to replenish the losses. The library survived. Then came the decline of Rome, and with it, Alexandria began to fray at the edges. In 273 AD, Emperor Aurelian crushed a rebellion in Alexandria and destroyed the Bruchaion, the royal quarter where the Mausion was located. The library was damaged, possibly severely, but it didn't vanish. In 391 AD, the Christian Emperor Theodosius I ordered the destruction of pagan temples throughout the empire. The Serapeum, a secondary library housed in a massive temple, was attacked and demolished by a Christian mob. Ancient sources described scrolls being burned and scattered, but scholars debate how many books were actually there by that point. And in 415 AD, the moment that haunts historians most, a woman named Hypatia was murdered in the streets of Alexandria by a mob of Christian zealots. She was the leading mathematician and philosopher of her time, the head of the Neoplatonist school, and a symbol of everything the old intellectual world of Alexandria represented. Her death marks for many historians the true end of Alexandria's golden age, not because a building burned, but because the culture that sustained it was gone. Then in 642 AD, the Arab general Amr ibn al-As conquered Alexandria for the Caliph Omar. A later legend, told centuries after the event and almost certainly apocryphal, claimed that Omar ordered the library burned, saying, "If the books agree with the Quran, they are unnecessary. If they disagree, they are dangerous." Most modern historians reject this story as a myth invented during the Crusades era to discredit Islam. By 642, there is little evidence a functioning major library remained in Alexandria anyway. So who actually destroyed the Library of Alexandria? Here is the answer that scholars have been circling for decades, and it's the one that should shake you. The Library of Alexandria was not destroyed in a single catastrophe. It died slowly over centuries through neglect, underfunding, and the collapse of the political will that had originally created it. The fires were real, the riots were real, but they accelerated a decay that had already begun long before any torch was lit. When the Ptolemies were replaced by Roman rule, the patronage that sustained the Mouseion shrank. Roman emperors were less interested in funding Greek intellectuals in Egypt. The scholars left. The acquisition slowed. The scrolls, made of papyrus, a material that decays in anything but perfect conditions, began to deteriorate without proper resources to replace them. The institution that had been the beating heart of human knowledge was slowly starved. And this is the part that makes Alexandria not just ancient history, but a warning. Every piece of knowledge that was lost in Alexandria was lost not because someone decided knowledge was the enemy. It was lost because the institutions that protected it were allowed to weaken, because priorities shifted, because funding dried up, because the people in power decided other things mattered more. The circumference of the Earth, the heliocentric solar system, the steam engine, human anatomy, gone, not in a night of fire, but in centuries of slow institutional collapse. Eratosthenes' original calculations survived only because a few people bothered to mention them in other texts. We know about Aristarchus' heliocentric model only because Archimedes wrote a short paragraph referencing it. Hero's steam engine survived because a few manuscript copies made it to Byzantium. Everything else, the full scope of what was discovered, theorized, and documented in Alexandria, is simply gone. We don't know what we lost. That's the real horror. We can't even measure the hole it left in human history because we don't know what was in it. Alexandria still exists. 5 million people live there today. You can walk its streets, eat by its harbor, visit the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, a stunning modern library built in 2002 on what is believed to be the approximate site of the ancient one. It holds 8 million books. The lighthouse is gone. The Mouseion is gone. Cleopatra's palace is underwater, swallowed by the sea after a series of earthquakes. Archaeologists are literally diving to find it. But the idea of Alexandria, the radical, almost insane idea that a civilization could build a single place dedicated to collecting and protecting all human knowledge, that idea never died. It became universities, it became libraries, it became the internet. Every time humanity has decided that knowledge is worth preserving, we are, in some small way, rebuilding Alexandria. Alexander the Great chose that stretch of sand and pointed at it and said, "Here." He never saw what it became. He never saw Eratosthenes measure the world with 2 sticks. He never saw Hypatia teach. He never saw the scrolls rot, or the mobs gather, or the slow draining away of everything his city had built. But he pointed, and for a few hundred years, in one city on the edge of the Mediterranean, humanity came closer to its own potential than it would for the next 1,000 years. That's worth remembering, because it can happen again, and it already is. In every university that loses funding, every library that closes, every researcher who leaves a country because the support isn't there. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes with stunning, terrible precision. Alexandria was not a miracle. It was a choice, and so is everything that comes after. If you enjoyed the video, I invite you to click on the video that is currently appearing on your screen and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.